Skypiea is without a doubt one of the best arcs in the entire series of One Piece. That is straight up facts. If you disagree, you, my friend, are just flat out wrong. Wrong. Why? Because we're seeing now in real time, that the events, the lore, the foreshadowing that Oda had done in Skypiea is coming back now in a big way for the entire series of One Piece. So if you just so happen to be one of these heathens, one of these lepers, gross people that skipped Skypiea, unacceptable! I suggest that you join the fold, you read Skypiea, because you'll get a much better framework of what is not only going down, but also what could be going down in the future of the series, just by simply reading Skypiea. Otherwise, if you're literally endgame One Piece and you have never read Skypiea, ring the bell Game of Thrones style. Shame, shame, shame. Listen, look here! I would argue Skypiea is a microcosm of not only the entire world of One Piece, but in general, the One Piece series itself. When we first enter Skypiea, this land of myth and legend, it hidden in the clouds where the angels are. It validates the existence of dreams, where dreams are real. And getting in the first place was insane. It was crazy via the knock-up stream from a place with Jaya where dreams were laughed at and scorned at. But yet here we are all the same, Skypiea is real. And then that sense of adventure when we're exploring this new location, this legendary place, where we have all these crazy creatures, where we have all of these unique people, the unique foods, the unique items as well, the dials that only exist in Skypiea, the difference of the soft clouds and the hard clouds, things of that nature. And then all the while with a new Straw Hat at the time, Nico Robin, and getting used to her and how she jived with the crew. And then from there we start to expand, where we have hidden secrets and tension and strife between the people and the different races of people that exist in the White Sea, the Shandians and the Skypieans. And then you have the expansion of some abilities, like for example, the first time we get to see Haki be utilized on a regular basis, the observation Haki in terms of mantra, just how in Wano Country now it's armor Haki with the Ryo. In two isolated places that have deep lore, that have ties to the Void Century, we see how both these places notify and utilize one of the core power systems of the world itself. But again, at the time, it was very unique, mantra. And then we have a extraordinarily lore-rich filled place when it comes to the deep history of 400 years plus of the Shandians arriving when Upper Yard first came into the sky, and then finding out later on how Shandora's history actually superseded that, going all the way back to 1,000 plus years when Shandora was a part of Jaya in the Blue Sea as the Skull Island. When Robin found that out in chapter 261, that was a big reveal. That was a huge deal. Because again, the scope of the series was gradually getting much and much and much bigger through this one arc. And what helps with the lore and the world building is also the Kalgara and Norland flashback that actually touches upon a lot of this 400-year plus history with the Shandorians and the Golden City. And the first time I recall an actual sun god was mentioned was in that flashback. And it just so happens also that it's during Skypiea that we find out about the Void Century dates from 800 to 900 years ago. And of course, when you have Roger with Odin's help write down the language of the poneglyphs on the side of the poneglyph in the gold, this in an absolutely gargantuan way expand the scope of the series, just showing you how important these poneglyphs were and how they weren't just some side quest. There'll be a pivotal point in the story moving forward in lockstep with Luffy's dream becoming Pirate King, and one of the main reasons why you can argue Robin's worth just skyrocketed in the series. And then finally, the sounding of the bell itself, the end of the romance, the completion of the dream, where everyone, not only across the White Sea, but also the Blue Sea as well, where Cricket can also hear the sound of the golden bell, completing his dream where he no longer had to dive down to the depths of the ocean because the Golden City didn't fall. It was up in the clouds. Yes, Skypiea is without a doubt one of the better arcs in the series. I can go on and on about Skypiea, but I'll save that for another day. Because for this video moving forward, I want to talk about two cats in particular. Number one, Monkey D. Luffy, and number two, former god of Skypiea, Enel. If you don't know, the reason why my channel is called King Lightning is because Enel is in my top 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, somewhere in there, in my top 5 favorite characters of all time in One Piece. I love that man. To this day, people do not fear God. Fear itself is God. Oh my goodness. And what's important here is understanding, I think, the dynamic between not just Luffy and Joyboy, but also potentially Enel and Imu. That is correct. What Luffy is to Joyboy is potentially what Enel is to Imu. Yes. Now, to be fair, not saying that Enel is Imu, though I wouldn't mind a final fight between Enel versus Luffy, like a souped up crazy Black Lightning Enel. I wouldn't mind it, but there's a good chance that's not that's not going to happen. But I think, okay, in this case, flip it around. What Luffy is to Joyboy is what Imu is to Enel, meaning that I think a lot of what Imu is about, if Imu is the final villain, if they're the final villain, a lot of what it could be about will be based on what Oda had written for Enel's character during Skypiea. And first, actually, we should talk about the idea about Imu being the final villain of the series, because there is a good chance this is the case here, and it's actually based on what we got in 1044. Because in 1044, the Gorosei talk about Luffy and his actual ability, not the Gomu Gomu no Mi, but the Hito Hito no Mi model Nika, mythical model Nika. And they explain how the government has failed to actually capture the fruit in the past 800 years. As if the Gomu Gomu fruit itself was purposefully avoiding the world government. Now, this is interesting here because the idea of a Zoan ability being sentient, therefore it's more cognizant of what it can do, even as a Devil Fruit soul, makes a degree of sense. Because we can see here that when it comes to the inanimate objects that are Devil Fruit users, they tend to be, actually for the most part, they're only Zoans at this point in time. They are only Zoans. So a mythical Zoan would probably be way more self-aware and way more cognizant of what it's doing when it's traveling around from fruit to fruit. Meaning that when it comes to the Nika ability, it probably avoided spots that are heavily marine populated or world government populated, and it found fruits that are very far away from the world government and marine control, stuff like that. But the question ultimately is why? Why was the fruit avoiding the world government for so many years? And the answer is probably not with them specifically, but more so with Imu. Yes, because Imu is clearly the most prevalent, the most long-standing individual in the world government. And I think it's a safe bet here that the fruit wasn't necessarily avoiding the world government per se, but it was avoiding people that had close ties to Imu. Yes, because Imu, I think, is the natural longtime enemy of Joyboy and or the sun god. And the idea that the fruit was avoiding Imu for such a long period of time kind of validates that. And in part, it goes in lockstep with the running themes of Luffy as a character, especially in this arc in Wano Country, where Luffy is supposed to like bring in the dawn. We all know what this is. It's the One Piece running trope where we go from place to place to place and we free and we liberate with the drums of liberation. We see them go from place to place and they actually free a lot of these places from their dire situations from usually very powerful forces. Luffy and the crew tend to be the shining light that a lot of these countries need. But then on the flip side, we see here at the end of Reverie in 908, Imu can erase light from the history books. And by their will, they can enact these great cleansings and make sure everything is hush-hush, hidden in the shadows. Yes, Imu also secretly, always the silhouette, sits on the true throne as king of the world. Or another way to view that would be God. And when you think about Imu's status and the control that Imu has over the world, it is very similar to Enel's status and control over the White Sea. Anyone who cursed Enel, the name God, or any of Gonfal's old divine military men who tried to escape Upper Yard to try and tell the truth about what's going on with the island right now and Arc Maxim, all these people were smited. No one can denounce the name of God, and no major secrets are to be revealed. Otherwise, you get vaporized, you die. And then, Enel forcing the people of Skypiea to actually trick and capture travelers. Remember that part, right? Enel actually had this plan played out where the folks of Skypiea would try and trick the travelers into going into Upper Yard. And as Gonfal explains in 255, that introduced the concept of sin to the people, wherein which Enel was able to control the people of Skypiea and enact his will as he saw fit through that fear of sin. And in a similar way, the world government does control various places through fear and taxation. Maybe not as godly, but just as rough in so many ways. And we have seen this with the entire series of One Piece, particularly through their CP agents, where through them, they can manipulate major events, infiltrate kingdoms, and control kingdoms to do their beck and call. We see that distinctly in Rob Lucci's flashback during Enies Lobby. And we also see this during Dressrosa, where we see how they have an iron grip on information, where we thought that Doflamingo had resigned as a Shichibukai, but actually, no, that was a mistake. When CP0 comes in there and tells their country that was a mistake. Akainu was so upset that they used the papers and the news as a way of just misleading Luffy and Law, that he actually went to the Holy Land to confront the elders. Cypher Pole just went too far. And of course, the elders said, Akainu, know your role, show your trap, that's how we roll. And we know, though Akainu, the new fleet admiral, he is lower on the totem pole than the Gorosei, and they are lower than Imu. It is trickle-down control here, and that is the structure, the natural structure of the world government. After all, if a Tenryubito's in trouble, an admiral, like a dog, must wag his tail and go right over to where they are. That's why Garp did not want to be an admiral. And also, following down this train of thought here, like we are Whole Food shoppers, what's also natural are natural enemies. And Luffy was a natural enemy to who? Lightning God Enel. If you read Skypiea or watched Skypiea, you would know here that Luffy's rubber abilities could counter Enel's lightning abilities wholesale. So if we use this train of thought here for Enel and Luffy, if the Sun God Nika ability was always trying to avoid Imu for 800 years, and seeing the reaction of the Gorosei in 1041, where they immediately tell Blue Scarf, kill Straw Hat Luffy, when they find out off screen what the deal was with Luffy's abilities, and then we see what they say in 1044, maybe this natural counter also applies to the Sun God Nika ability and whatever Imu's about, if Imu has some crazy unique power. Oh, because we have more evidence now. And what the Gorosei are saying in 1044, where they say that even making Kaido upset is a fair trade-off for killing the user of the Nika ability. But based on what we've seen so far, something isn't making sense here. Because we're seeing here with Luffy against Kaido, even though Luffy got more powerful, clearly he did, the man is still getting whooped. Okay, not whooped, but it's still clearly a fight between Kaido and Luffy. He's able to match Luffy blow for blow just fine, just fine. Awakening the Gomu Gomu fruit does not make you the most powerful person on the planet off the rip. Clearly it doesn't. So why are the Gorosei, they're stressing it so damn hard? If there is a reason outside, let's say, the potential of the fruit, which has a lot of potential, clearly it does. It could be because whatever the Nika is, it can counter whatever Imu is all about. Just how Enel was countered by what the Gomu Gomu was about. Yeah, that's right. So you can see here how the ties to Luffy and Joyboy and Enel and Imu, at least symbolically, can be there. Theoretical, of course, but potentially, of course. And mind you, we're not done yet. We can continue down this road. For example, Enel had no qualms at all ripping every man, woman, and child from the sky, from Skypiea, because it was unnatural for folks to be born and live in the clouds. And Enel did destroy Skypiea and was going to destroy Upper Yard. And for him, it was his godly duty to do so. in this case, the government here have the ability to wipe out islands with a Buster Call. Hence was the fate from those from Ohara, because Ohara was on the verge of defying the natural order that the world government had established for 800 years. And mind you, when I say natural, we have these quotes here on so many fronts for both Enel and the world government. And the folks of Ohara were going against that natural order because they were going to learn the truth of the world. Just how in Skypiea, the great truth that was hidden by Enel was the Arc Maxim ship, which allowed him to create thunderclouds that could destroy entire islands. And once he was done with the Arc, he had no qualms at all wiping out all life in the country outside of a select few that would go with him to Fairyverse, the moon. And that was the big secret truth of the Arc. Here we have, for the overall series, a grandiose major truth being kept hidden by the world government that no one should know. Both Enel and the world government always tried to silence and always tried to keep this truth hidden from the rest of the populace, making sure that they can maintain their fear and control over the people. And when someone does find out, and then they act on that, according to Whitebeard and Marineford War, this would lead to a final global war. So you can see here how we can continue on these line of thoughts here between Enel and the world government, aka Imu, and how there are similarities across the board on how they operate when it came to Enel, the microcosm, and then the entire world, the macrocosm that is Imu. And again, Imu is a very good candidate to be the final villain of the series. And we'll know the future once Oda shines that light on what the real truth of the world of One Piece is. And when you think about that idea again of light, Enel himself was darkness in the sense, like, because Blackbeard is obviously, but there are other characters that do represent the darkness. Enel was one of them, Rob Lucci, at a point in time was Crocodile, Doflamingo, and so on and so forth here. And Enel, in his case, you can see how he created these thunder clouds in the White Sea. Normally clouds are too dense to be that high up. That would darken the sky in a very ominous way, but then it's Luffy who wipes out Enel's largest Raigo and actually breaks apart all the clouds in the area, showcasing the sun. He unveils the sun. And then right afterwards, look at Enel's Amaru form. Enel's Amaru form looks very similar to Luffy's Gear 4 Bowman form. Even the poses are very similar. It's just that one is evil and one is good. And we cannot forget about the fact that when Luffy restarted his own heartbeat in 1043, the dude literally pulled an Enel, how Enel could restart his own heart after Wiper's reject dial. And then when it comes to the sounds of the drums of liberation, Enel himself also uses drums for certain attacks, whether it's the Hino, the Thunder Bird, the Katen, the Thunder Tiger, or the Dralgul, the Thunder Dragon. Of course, all names botched. Again, the parallels, I would argue, are there. Confirmed? No. But it's a theory, and I'm putting it out there because I think we can look at Skypiea and get a greater sense of potentially who Imu is as a person. And the most important note here wouldn't just be the how it happened in the past and what went down exactly, but why. Why does Imu do what they do? What are Imu's ambitions? For Enel's ambitions, he was trying to seek and create a world that is fitting of God. And for him, that was Fairyverse, the moon. Maybe we can apply that same logic to Imu here, but not for the moon, but to the world itself. Where Imu, through control of the world, through the world government, by snuffing out lights that try and find out the truth, by doing these cleansings and buster calls through the Cypher Pole agents, the agents of the world that impose its dark will. Maybe Imu, ultimately speaking, is trying to create the world into an ideal place for God itself. Or in this case, because Luffy is a god in some ways, let's say Imu is the king of gods, the only one worthy sitting on top of the Game of Thrones, the true throne.